Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast where we serve you up freshly steamed stories every week. Careful, the plate's hot. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. We are continuing on. Last week we started the story. I just told you guys the name of it. No, I forgot.
The Dream of Truth.
Dream within a Dream.
A Dream of Truth. So I'll give you a little rundown and then we'll go from there. How's that sound, guys?
Great.
Sounds good.
So what we have here is a fantasy world of magic. Wizards and elves and dwarves and rangers and knights and paladins. Kind of your most idyllic form of a fantasy world, right? Everything is beautiful and prosperous in the sort of settled light lands. The big thing is that people at night, they dream of something terrible. Everyone does. They dream of a white, lights, gray stone place, dark and dank and terrifying, where they do menial tasks. And no one knows why, or no one in the governments of the world know why everyone dreams of this place. And the reality is that they are in a simulation. There are people that are in a simulation inside of a bunker that's falling apart. It's long lived. It's long past its sort of expiration date. And the people, their dreams are them basically waking up in their pods and going about the menial tasks needed for them. The people inside of the simulation don't really recognize this. They just think it's a curse or it's something. They're not sure what it is. There are groups of people who have recognized that this is kind of an important reality. Like, which one's the dream? The one that I see when I open my eyes or the one that I see when I close? But that kind of thought process is seen as strange and not normal or good. It seems kind of like people are wanting to die, which, isn't what we'd consider the peak of mental health. So there's some discord, some dissonance with the people who recognize that there's something wrong and there's something weird going on, and everyone else who just kind of ignores it or tries to use, herbologists or magic to kind of try and soothe the dream or not really be aware of it, different things like that. Our magic system is an essence-based magic system. So you can learn the essence of something. You can capture the essence of something by encouraging an essence of something to live in a medium. So you can encourage light from a torch onto a pen by writing a name that closely represents the light that a torch gives off, and you can encourage the essence of the light or the heat or the burning properties different. So depending on the name you write down, it encourages different aspects. So some magic things are very common, but always people are trying to find a different aspect of the name of something, to bind to things to use that as magic. Does that kind of explain it, Seth? I know it was your element. Okay. And then Reed's was, what was yours, Reed? Yours, what was the element?
Something based on a book I'm reading.
And you were reading a Tom Clancy novel about these guys who wanted to attack America, and they found a nuclear bomb, and they were going to smuggle it in and blow it up on the 4th of July.
No, the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so your element was basically there's a coalition of people who have recognized that this dream thing is fake, or who are dissatisfied with how they have come out in the world, right? Maybe they're unfavorable races. They've spawned in as unfavorable. Because this is, even though it's a simulation, it's not a game. It's like a world. It's a reality. Yeah. And they're irritated at the lot that they've been given, and the recourse that they have for it is destruction.
Yeah, I named the guy Horus. I might not even have said it out loud, but that's what I wrote down in my notes. But anyway, he's an orc in this world of men and dwarves and elves and wizards and, all this. And so he's starting out kind of not highly esteemed in the great picture of things. And then he's part of a kind of an outcast group of orcs that have been treated shabbily by the orc community, But the thing about Horus is that he has glimpsed the reality of the dreams, because he's got functions that he has to do and he works hard, But when he wakes up, he understands that that's probably the reality, and he has the capacity to affect things in the fantasy world by actions he takes in the dream world.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, or in the so which is the dream world. But anyway, the something based on a book I'm reading. The story is the disaffected people in the novel. Some of All Fears are Palestinians. The book, Clancy wrote it just at the breakup of the Soviet Union and peace was breaking out. And these guys were mad that there's going to look like there was going to be a peace deal in the Middle East. And then there was a guy that was a Native American character, really interesting character, but he had fled. The FBI was after him, and so he had fled to this group of terrorists in Lebanon or Syria, I'm not sure. And then also there was a former Stasi spy from the old East German thing. Well, with the reunification of Germany, like he had become hunted and
Right.
Yeah. So these guys were teaming up. Well, how can we get back at the Russians who have sold out the workers' struggle, and the Americans, of course, who everybody hates. And so I know, let's like blow up the Super Bowl and then get the Americans to blame the Russians and the Russians to blame the Americans and have them blow each other up and then
Right. So this is in fact probably a lot of not just orcs. It's a lot of disaffected groups.
Yeah, and what it is this Horus. He has discovered the storyline that I'm borrowing from the book that I'm reading. They found a atomic bomb from a crash site. A plane had crashed that was carrying a non-activated nuclear bomb, and they're going to make this.
This isn't what Horus found. You're talking about.
No, but what I'm saying is Horus found out that this whole dream thing, there was an apocalypse, and he had found I don't know if it was in their world a nuclear weapon, but it was some sort of doomsday weapon that had wiped out civilizations. They knew it, and why everybody was in a bunker and why they were living in this fantasy world in order to make it palatable.
Or maybe what he found instead of that was a sort of master control system in the real world, and was able to kind of bring some weapon into the world of this fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I've seen villains, their biggest motivation is, I want you to experience what I experienced.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've experienced great turmoil in death
Yeah.
and rebirth. So now I'm going to like do something to cause a great pain to you so that, you know.
Yeah, it's like the guy that gets dumped. Well, if I
can't
can't have her, no one can have her.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
And so then there's revenge and crap going
Right,
on and
right.
sickness. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's the recap. So what story elements did you guys have for this week?
Mine is Wise Old Woman.
I have villain's sidekick.
Oh, nice. We changed unique pet. So you won't see unique pet anymore. We changed it to unique creature. Because oftentimes there can be a creature, one would not call Shadowfax Gandalf's pet.
Exactly.
Right? He's a unique creature in the world, the king of horses.
Yeah.
So I have unique creature.
Cool.
And I'd kind of like to go first because it would kind of, unless Seth, you have some interesting, I have a little bit more world building I'd like to build with this unique creature.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to do unique creature, but it's going to have an S on it, unique creatures, right? So when the developer for this it's not a game, this environment was being created, he was a game developer, right? He was a developer, full dive meaning like you sit in a pod and you connect your brain up to it and it's like full virtual reality game development. So there was some sort of cross-referencing he had to do to strip away things like leveling systems and stuff like that, but there were some things he needed to keep in it, right? The people couldn't wake up in the world having to figure out everything themselves. So, 200 years ago, when the people first, in order to conserve power, bedded down in the full dive machines and came to consciousness, they came to consciousness as 20-year-old people and then anyone under 15 came to consciousness as their age, right? But as they wandered into towns, those towns couldn't just be empty because the human brain needs some plausible understanding of the world around it. So there were, of course, NPCs, right? Non-player characters. And these were slowly phased out as the population increased. There was a tavern owner, and he was there, and he would sell people drinks and buy and trade and give people news. But eventually he singled out a player character and said, wow, you really are doing this brewing skill a lot. Would you want to take over the bar? And then he would travel to see some family and then die of I'm making air quotes with my fingers, and then die of old age. And then that NPC, artificial intelligence, would be retired as a human stepped into that role. So now as we sit kind of 200 years on, it's pretty much all humans in all roles, right? So there's no NPCs kind of as the king or as the grand mage. Those are all humans. So all the governments, all the policies that have been made in the last 120 years or so are all human-made systems. However, there is some need for governance, right? Like weather. Who decides how the weather is going to go? Unless a wizard is there to control the weather, who's going to decide how the weather is going to go? Or the animals, right? Or the seasons, or the crop turnout and stuff like that. So all that is controlled by several kind of master control AIs. These are the unique creatures, right? And they're the ones kind of dictating out how things will go. And then in the same place, all of the bad guys, right? The same thing happened with the orcs and the goblins and things like that. At first, there were tons of NPCs who were orcs and goblins and creepy ghouls and liches and, all your standard kind of fantasy trope bad guys. But as people chose their paths in life, they would die and then they would respawn as someone, and so there are still some high level NPC artificial intelligences that control like the big master wizard who lives in the Black Tower over the Sundered Sea, there's still like that one. And then the ones that are in control of like portal spells, so if you do like random, like a spell that's like a random portal, who decides where that spell goes to? Well, an artificial intelligence does. And so all of them are a base fracture of the game developer's mind. Right. So in order to create this, he took his own, because he was a big nerd, right? He took his own consciousness.
Big nerd with a big brain.
Big nerd with a big
Probably
old brain.
Wore 2 pairs of glasses.
Probably, and a pocket protector. So he took his mind and he copied it into an artificial intelligence crystal and then trained it to be all of these things. And this is one of the problems of the system that he designed, which was he wasn't incredibly proud of the system, right? And he was an advocate for when the world, like he's long dead now, right? He wasn't even in this bunker, but he was a big advocate when the world was running that people should live here permanently. And because of that, the whole world has this kind of bent towards keeping people locked in, right? So even though he was supposed to make it very easy for people to pass in and out of the world, like there was supposed to be a log out button, the fact that all these souls are together kind of looking at this place and forming it as a reality, he himself was a soul, and even though there's hundreds of permutations of his consciousness that's running the whole world, he's kind of he wants to keep people there.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is one of the great difficulties, because people were supposed to be able to go to sleep and then get the option to sleep or to wake up in their pods in the bunker and then do the duties to fix things and keep things going. And if they had, then maybe the bunker wouldn't be like falling apart and the reactor failing and all these things that are happening now. The other thing I'm thinking of is that because the AI system is connected to the bunker in some way, the fact that the world, the reactor is failing and the water system, basically every system is failing because people are only putting a very small amount of work into fixing it because they're doing it while hallucinating, while dreaming. Like it's not happening. Things start to happen in the world that start to reflect, It's like the bunker's failing. So this mountain, this smoke, the volcano mountain is like starting to smoke. And there's like, wizards cast future seeing divination spells and they say, well, in exactly crazy, 137.5 hours, this or some figure, the volcano will explode. I wonder why it's so specific. Wonder why we know so specifically that the volcano is going to blow up in exactly 6 months, 2 weeks, 3 days, 47 hours, and 10, 9, 8, 7 seconds. Well, it's because the complex computers that are running the reactor know exactly when it's going to fail, and that information is starting to bleed over, and the AI that controls the world is like, okay, how can I deal with this so that they understand that there's something wrong? Oh, that volcano that was dormant for 100 years is now starting to smoke. So maybe the people will figure out something's wrong.
Right.
So that's the unique creatures.
Cool.
I would think in the way that it is, and it might explain why it makes it seem like a dream. They're basically, it was supposed to be that they could, log out, wake up, do their tasks, and go back in for a long,
Right.
like maybe in shifts. But being that the controlling thing had in mind for them to stay there, right, and they're mentally hooked up to it, it's hitting the synapses in their brain, or the neurons, or however that works, brain science. Not rocket science, brain science.
Yeah.
So when they come out of it, because it's on like a scheduled thing where they need to come out, it's like tricking the brain into it, like it's how people are when they like are withdrawing from like a substance.
Yeah.
Right? There's like they gotta have it. They're like, they're what is it, jonesing for another hit, right? And so they're in their waking thing, all they're thinking about is getting back in to have that fix, to get that thing back. So that's why when they come back in, that part of it is like a bad dream to them, because they're
because it's all withdrawal. The whole time they're there, they're just feeling the total. And that's the thing, is you go to sleep in a beautiful, idyllic, meadow with mountains in the background, and it's always summer here, and you go to sleep and you hallucinate a dank, musty smelling, gray walls, flickering lights place, and you come back and you're like, that has to be a nightmare. There's no way.
Yeah.
Your brain just says, this thing that I can see in front of me is so much better. I refuse to believe that is good.
Right. Cool.
Yep.
You kind of set up my my character, but I'd be glad to defer if it's time for you to put in your villain sidekick, Seth.
Sure. So the villain sidekick is, I had a name for him earlier today. Matthew Guile. Is his
Guile,
name.
like it.
And now it just struck me. I think that is it from the Lightbringer?
Yes.
Guile is, yeah.
Guile is. Okay. I just thought of that just now when I said it out loud and not in my head.
At least it isn't Nathan Guile. Didn't Jesus say, Nathan, truly here is a Galilean with no guile? No.
Anyway, it was Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
I think it was Nathaniel or Philip. Anyways, so Matthew Guile, but he has, how would you put it? Like a double personality. That is his name, but people that know him call him Kyle, not Guile, but Kyle. And that's kind of like the code word that you're in on what it is he's leading you into.
Okay.
So what he does is he has been finding the world outside, right? And over the last few years, which kind of an interesting twist to it with what you set up there, Levi. So he's kind of like woken up from it, but he'll come into the game, right? And play the thing in there. But also his point is to kind of look for and draw some of these people out, right? And get them almost like the Matrix, right? This isn't real, you need to wake up and find this is the reality, right? And so kind of on that trope, he comes with like showing proof, like what you just said, like, your government is NPCs and they're like, robots, right? Which he probably has the stuff that proves that originally they were, right?
Right.
But kind of in that conspiratorial, if you're looking for a problem, you're going to find one.
Right, absolutely.
Kind of thing. And so he's bringing that up. And so it might have been true once. It might not be what's happening now, but there is like a moniker of truth to it. So he lures these people out. Particularly, he's looking for strong, let's say, mages, people that, have an ability to try to, kind of get stuff. And one of the things I think he does is he's been one of the people pioneering bringing some of the other essence of other reality and weapons into this state, right? So he's figured out that, like we talked about in the first episode, where the possibility that people could use that magic system outside of the suspended reality, right?
Yeah.
And so he is like pulling people out, like getting them to stay out. But then part of the hitch is that if they're not useful, he kind of puts them to kind of slave labor out in the real world. Of course, he kind of comes back and forth and is playing, kind of like in the Matrix, this is the new city of the real people, and you got to do your part, and it might be hard, but eat the gruel, because it's better than eating fake food. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah,
right?
no, absolutely.
And if someone is too powerful and not useful, he gets rid of them, right? He wants people to be able to be powerful for his own means on the outside, but if they kind of catch on to what he's doing, he plans an accident for them.
Right.
Otherwise, he's kind of running a back and forth operation where he's kind of scouting out, supplying in kind of weird essence of, perhaps different explosions, different bombs, like, like a stick that throws lead, like perhaps like I'm thinking like he pulls the essence of like a firearm, right? But then it's like in a stick. And so when you like toss it, it'll like throw a bullet or something. I don't know. I just thought of that. But,
Right. Or you have to say bang.
bang, bang. And the stick has to look like a gun.
Boomstick.
A boomstick. Quite literally a boomstick.
Right. And as you're saying this, a lot of this stuff could be disguised as like the engineering guild, like developing new technology.
Cool.
Yeah. But in essence, he uses that as a cover to bring these essences from the real world or from the waking world into the dream in order to like get his way or do what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say I was thinking that most of the people on the outside, unless they are kind of in with him and make the connection, they don't realize that they can use, let's say, some of the game mechanic and the magic system from inside the game outside, right?
Right.
So someone's just like, wow, this hoe really tills the ground really good. Well, yeah, because inserted into the handle is like a small stone that holds the essence of tilling earth, right?
Right.
And, or is inside of it, and you've been tilling with it long enough that it's almost like maybe out there, it would almost seem like a leveling system where it's like, oh, I've used this, knife to cut vegetables, and it just keeps getting sharper and like easier to use. And
oh, yes. Yes, because in the game, everything is locked because the developer made it not a game, right? But once you take it out of that programming, the essence magic, it makes a knife sharper every time it's used, right?
Or like after it's used like 100 times, it starts collecting the essence of it, right? It's like leveling it up.
Right, because it no longer has the restrictions of the no longer has the restrictions of the programming on it anymore. It's just purely the essence reacting on its own now.
Yeah,
cool.
And I would say his big goal is being able to transport someone, because if he can get a person to go out, then that person could essentially begin to level up, right? Because if an avatar that has has all this game style strength and ability and intelligence can be transported out, then that person would essentially start leveling up in the real world, as the essence of things would bind to him and hit the compensation for his intelligence would continue to increase. Because that's the thing. In the game world or in the simulation world, everyone has unlimited potential, only restricted by the programming of the game. But then if you bring it into the actual reality, the waking world, which one's the actual reality, then that would essentially be limitless. The person would just have, if they ran for 100 hours, their running speed would increase by a measurable amount. And then for another 100 and another 100, it would just keep increasing exponentially.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that the hero, I might steal something from Play to Live, and you can tell me if this is a bad idea. I think that the hero starts out as a slave to this guy. What was his name again?
Matthew Guile.
Matthew Guile, or Kyle.
So he starts
Kyle
out
on the outside, Matthew Guile on the inside.
Gotcha. He starts out as a slave, right? And he is a transporter, right? He was a guild mage, and his speciality was teleportation magic. And he's been basically enslaved in, the Darklands over the mountains where everything's kind of scary and bad, trying to teleport items and essences, things with essences attached to them, and sometimes being successful and sometimes not, to a place that our hero has only seen in his dreams, right? He remembered there was a dream where a person who looked kind of like Matthew dragged him to a place and did something to him and made him memorize a spot on the ground that has a yellow square painted around it, right? Made him study it for hours and hours and hours. And when our hero woke up, he was enslaved by Matthew, and his job is to take things and to send them to that place.
Okay, so one quick thing on that. So Matthew, he's got to be I don't know, a kobold or like a goblin. Maybe sophisticated, but something that a hobgoblin, something he keeps in mind is that, or starts it's he looks familiar, only the version in the game, is the one that seems less like a nightmare.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Indicating that his real persona outside, because that was partly my mind too, is that he's kind of like a really deranged madman, but making not a reference, but a thing where it's if this is the same guy, the non-human version is the nicer looking one.
Yeah, for sure. Hobgoblins are cool in D&D because they are a goblin race variant, but they tend to be more intelligent. And they're tall, they're of average height and weight and taller, and they're more intelligent. But they have still kind of the same kind of goblin-like features. That's why I thought hobgoblin. But
yeah, no, that works.
Cool.
Okay.
My thought is, so I just got done reading The Wheel of Time. I'm actually 2 hours away from finishing New Spring now, the prequel. And it's the first time I've read it. It's really good. One of the things that struck me about it was that the Aiel, the race of people in The Wheel of Time, if you haven't read it, you should read it. But the Aiel are these people, and they believe that life is a dream and that everyone has to wake at some point, aka die. And so everyone else kind of looks at them and thinks that they're they're really macabre, they're really fatalistic, but they just know that life is a dream. They just know that death is inevitable. And so they accept their death. And because of that, they can walk into danger without fear because they've already accepted their death. This is the kind of thought process I was imagining when I thought of the dissidents who lived, not the ones who want to kill and destroy and tear down the world, but the ones who want to live separately, the ones who realize that something is different and want to figure out what that is and understand it. This is why they have to live separately, is because they choose not to accept the world around them.
Yeah.
Right? They choose to accept. So they're like a collection of all races. Because anytime anyone kind of gets to this revelation, gets to this place, they're shunned by almost everyone, and they almost immediately find their way north across the mountains to this group of people who is now there's a lot of them, hundreds of thousands of them is what it feels like, who are all feel this way. So they'll be an army or a force to be reckoned with, but they can be tainted by either side very easily. They can be swayed to either fight for the side that wants to live or fight for the side that wants everyone to die, because they're just but I kind of imagine the hero's journey starting with him being this slave and then getting rescued by them or escaping somehow, and then getting his first point of contact is with them, and then he eventually makes his way over the mountains into the land of light.
Okay. Well, I've got a character I want to introduce here. It's a wise old woman. And something you said, Levi, that really kind of fits with her. When they were building this, when the game master was building this world, this idealized world, if you got sick, broken down old people, they don't turn up as sick and broken down and old in this idealized world. They're young and fit and graceful and Right. Well, my wise old woman is Gracia, and she's elvish. but she's revered in the idealized world as kind of an ancient elvish sage known to have been around for time out of mind. So she has. I just thought of this because I had. George Burns had this song. It was several years ago when he was old. He said, "I wish I was 18 again." It's like the whole notion, like too soon old, and the thing is, youth is wasted on the young. Because it's if I had known what I know now, like back when I made those silly mistakes, my world would have been much much different. Well, yeah, she was bringing a lot of years and experience and whatnot in her personality, and as she entered this idealized world as an ancient, but yet still lithe and graceful and fit elf, because they obviously the years are kinder to elves. Gracia. She has a secret ability to recognize, though, those who are like her, kind of awake in the dream world. Like she has been able to see what's going on, and she has spotted Horus, and his group, and she has a network of people monitoring him in both worlds. And like when she and her crew spot someone in the early stages of reality recognition, she tries to calm and ease the transition, counseling caution and avoiding bringing contention to themselves. So she is kind of building kind of a network within the system, right? Working within the system to try to keep people from harming themselves and keep people from being ostracized, helping them to fit in. So more and more people are in the idealized world, but wink, wink, nod, nod. They kind of know what's going on, but they're playing along with it.
Right. And maybe the goal is at some point to, if we can get enough people to recognize it, but not cause. So as you were talking, I was thinking she originally led the current dissidents, the nonviolent dissidents who live far away.
Yeah.
Her plan was to get a bunch of people to recognize something was wrong, so that the system would say, okay, I got to wake people up, but it didn't work.
Right.
They all just got something was manufactured, and they split apart from her. Mm-hmm. And so now she's trying to wake people up silently and carefully to do the same thing, but now just more carefully.
Yeah, and when you were talking earlier, I had it pictured in my mind that she was kind of being schooled or mentored by one of these AI controller types, but something had gone wrong, so they had to kind of rush her into her position more quickly because something was breaking down. So you see what I'm saying? She kind of got rushed in way back into the position, even though she was one of the quote-unquote subjects or one of the, human players. She had been kind of schooled and ushered into the way things work a little bit. And as a result, she had that kind of recognizing.
Yeah, okay. So here's a plot. You ready? Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, a NPC, she knows it's an NPC, comes to all the cities simultaneously and pronounces a prophecy.
Okay.
That the God child has been born, right? The Savior has been born that will lead the people, right? What this is a child was born with a severe disorder, right? A child was born with a severe brain disorder. And what happened is the AI, as it was analyzing this, it was given a directive it doesn't cull children, right? It doesn't say this isn't a viable human being. But what it did is it melded the brain with artificial intelligence to make up the cognitive difference. And now this child basically is a god, right? And the NPCs created this proclamation because it's the only way that they could keep the child alive was to do this, and functioning well was to do this. And so this child is now 10, 15 years old and can with study, can recognize any word of essence, can bend the world how he wants it because he has part of the programming system as part of his brain, right? But he's still a child, so it's like there's this thing that's happened. And this is one of the things that the wise old woman is looking for, because she knows that he's there somewhere. And so she's going around looking for him, because he could be the key. If he could be slowly awakened to the world around, he could essentially turn everything off. Right? Put them out. And the villain's sidekick is also looking for him, because someone who has had their consciousness augmented by artificial intelligence is like the key to power for him, right?
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of looking for this kid who would be about 10, maybe 15 years old now. Not everyone, but people are looking for him. Some people don't remember it. Some people consider it kind of a fun, because quest givers come all the time, and say that there's a dragon in the hills. We got to go kill him. It's like, it's just part of the world, is what a lot of people believe. What do you think, Seth? As far as a plot, like people are looking for him, and even the peaceful dissidents are looking for him, because they want to understand the truth of the dream, and they're like, he's a god. He's not a god. Gods aren't real. We don't believe in gods in this world, but we know he's very powerful, And this could even be the start of like faction, the first ever kind of faction dissidence between different, because before everything's just been kind of like idyllic and peaceful. Every once in a while, there'd be an army from over the mountains that would come, and the whole place would rise up, and they would go and fight and have glorious battle and then come back. But this is the first time that like the factions are kind of like, who has him? Who, is he a dwarf? Is he an elf? Is he a human? Is he a this thing? If, we need to have him in order to like get our will done. And so it's like the pot is being stirred in like 100 different ways here.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, kind of imagining their own, like any prophecy or anything, of that nature. You can take what is said, and if you are already, let's say, wanting to believe, or what's already on your mind will interpret what you think it to be or want it to be.
Right.
So, a savior for a bunch of terrorists, might be, like someone that's going to help them with their cause, but a savior to the people fighting the terrorists is going to be someone that puts the terrorists down. So if it's the same figure, both different groups are going to be imagining that what exactly it's supposed to be is already what they want it.
Or if they view it like this is a thing that we can use, so whoever gets it first gets to use it. Like I remember in the Wheel of Time, there was like, whoever blows the horn of Valier, that's who the heroes come and fight for. So if the Shadow blows the horn of Valier, then the heroes of old will come and fight for the Shadow. And then at the end, Matt asks Hawking that, and Hawking says, we would never have fought for the Shadow.
Right.
Like, what are you saying? We would only have fought for the light. So it's like people believe certain things because it's like the gambler fallacy. People believe certain things because it would be the best or the most convenient for them for those things to be true.
Yeah.
But everyone's doing it good and bad.
Yeah. It reminded me also, that part on the Wheel of Time reminded me of the third book of the C.S. Lewis space trilogy, Out of the Silent Planet, where there's kind of a scramble to find, there's buried somewhere is the secret tomb of Merlin and Stasis, and they want to, they're trying to, the bad guys that are trying to build this ridiculous world of what that they control, they think, well, all they got to do is they've got to find him and wake him up, and then his vast power will be used on our behalf, and of course could never have been the case. He responded to Ransom because Ransom spoke the old solar, the language, and had the words of power, and was on the right side. And
exactly.
And it could never, the notion of him lending his power to these ridiculous Bellberry crew, that could never have happened.
Right, but the reality of that and the reality of the Horn of Valier is something that our characters don't know until that gets revealed.
Right.
And who knows? It might be that whoever finds him and convinces him, we could make it so it's like the Horn of Valir or like Merlin, or we could make it so that he really is just like, I mean, think about a 15-year-old. A 15-year-old can be convinced that a lot of different things are true.
Yeah.
You know, it's really whoever talks to them the most, whoever offers them the most, it's like, I don't have a 15-year-old, so I don't know how to convince them to do anything. But I remember being 15 and it was like, if you give me attention, if you're kind to me, I'm like on your team.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like these different factions are going to try and find him and are going to try, and some are going to fail at convincing him. Some are going to try and hurt him to convince him, and some are going to try and be kind to him, and some are going to be kind to try to him in a kind and try to get him to do what they want in a malicious way or in a right way. But it's like, who finds him first? And I think that's what the wise old woman is looking for, and that's the same thing that Jonathan is looking for. And that's the same thing that our hero will be looking for, looking to find him, to convince him, use him, kill him, whatever, Cool.
So I'm thinking, here's an idea to throw out real quick as far as how it might work. Instead of being something, let's say, extremely fanciful, he might not even know that he's that person.
Absolutely,
if it's integrated with his brain inside of the thing, what you might get is someone who is basically, it's like fixing the code as he's looking at stuff, right? If things are technically breaking down, right, from inside of it, he could look at something and perhaps, the AI part is then kind of scanning or reading, and it'd be like, that flower seems, kind of odd. I don't know why, but it just looks odd. And then as he thinks about it as like it kind of should be like something intuitively wrong with it, right? Then like it's like tagged by the operating system that then goes, because it's didn't render one of the petals, and then that gets fixed, right? And so kind of is altering the operational code maintenance wise as well from inside, right?
Cool. Yeah.
And so it's not like he really understands what he's doing either.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's
but
a
it's
good
just
idea.
like, so that as he's interacting with it, his human mind as he's seeing it is interacting, as well as then it's like looking at fixing the code and sending like work order or like recoding different things as he's looking at it.
Yeah.
Which in essence, he could be kind of like, it hasn't rained here for a while. And then you'd wake up the next morning, it's like, well then, we needed rain here, right? Or, but not really realizing that he's the one that's doing it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is the best way, that he's just noticing things and they're changing, but, he doesn't think that he's the one changing them. I mean, he's only 15 years old,
That was kind of my thought on what it could be, because they're all looking for someone, let's say, exerting a large amount of power, setting himself up. You were just reading the Wheel of Time, and the last one was like the game of houses and stuff, right? So you have everyone, he's, not as tall. Are you sure he's the one? He only had 3 people come in with him. It's like, is he just being modest? Or like, that whole kind of, looking for the thing that they already think it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they're not finding it because, they're looking for the wrong thing.
I like this story so far.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where we only take a couple of cues from a couple of books we've read.
Yeah.
If you like
no
this,
L's or M's or P's, just Q's.
Yeah, just cues. If you liked this story so far, if you like the podcast, share it with your friends. Share it with somebody. Tell us that you like it. Send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. Message us on Twitter at @GetsBetterCast. We'd be happy to answer questions, listen to complaints, take suggestions, listen to constructive criticism. We're always happy to hear your thoughts. Till next time, we will see you guys later when we continue and wrap up the story. Bye, guys.